how's Patty about Cincinnati? What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.
Hello, Reds fans, and welcome to another edition of We Love Our Team. Along with my partner, Randy Freaking, I'm Jack Greiner, and we are honored today to welcome Eddie Fingers and Rocky Boiman. Eddie and Rocky are broadcasting legends in Cincinnati, hosting a show on WLW radio every day from 3 to 6. Eddie was a longtime member of WEBN's Dawn Patrol, and Rocky was a linebacker at Notre Dame and with several NFL teams. Guys, welcome to We Love Our Team.
Thank you, guys. It's great to be here.
Pleasure to be here. I'm certainly not the legend. I get to work with one every day, and Eddie.
As legends go, Rocky's a great football player. Thank
you. Hey guys. Hey, thanks for doing this. And Rocky is a LaSalle grad. Jack always leaves out the St. X Bomber stuff from his intros. So welcome to another Bomber. We usually like to ask our guests about their backgrounds. And Eddie, why don't we start with you? I see on the wall behind you, you've got that Browns picture which is a little disturbing.
Yeah.
But tell us about your background, where you grew up, and how you wound up behind the microphone in the afternoons on WLW.
I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, not Kentucky. And, so that explains the Browns thing, is that I'm old. So I remember before the Bengals existed, I had two older brothers and they were giant Browns fans. So I just kind of, the shoes of the fisherman. And getting into radio, I don't know, ever since I was a kid, I was just really into it. And that was the age, you guys remember, Rocky won't remember, he's not old enough to remember when Top 40 radio was king.
Yeah.
Sure.
We grew up on the Beatles. That wasn't classic rock. That was what we listened to.
Right.
And so, I was just always infatuated with it. And I got my first tape recorder when I was in third grade.
That's
and
awesome.
just always used to toy around with that thing. And one thing led to another. And WVUD at the University of Dayton was a big station up there. And that's what I listened to in high school. And I thought I was either going to be a dentist or a disc jockey. And when I told my mom and dad I decided not to go to pre-med and become a disc jockey, that went over great. And so anyways, I went to UD and ended up working at VUD and moved down here right after college. When I graduated, I started working at SAI-FM when that was rock. And then kind of kicked around. I worked at an ad agency for a little bit. I worked in Cleveland a little bit, Louisville a little bit, and then ended up back here at 96 Rock. Worked there for 3 years, and then Bo Wood hired me away to go to EBN, and that's that.
Wow. So, I was listening to a podcast, That's So Cincinnati. It's a thing the Enquirer does, and Mike McConnell was on it. And I think he had a pretty similar journey, didn't he? I mean, because I think he was at that Dayton radio station as well, wasn't he?
We were on the same staff.
Oh, is that right? Well, two legends, in one. That's cool. So that was just through UD? That was the UD's radio station?
Uh-huh. It was a commercial radio station, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Hey,
Randy?
Jack, I used to do the news on WVUD when I went to college at UD. When I
Wow.
was a
Did you really,
budding,
Randy?
yeah, I was a budding sportscaster or sports reporter, and I just did the news every once in a while.
Wow, that's
That's where,
cool.
that's where
Well,
Randy.
another broadcast legend comes out of there.
That's right. That's right.
Uh, well,
So,
we knew
yeah.
him as Dan Pugh when in school, but Dan Patrick, of course.
Oh,
Yes.
huh. That's awesome. So, Rocky, you're a native. We know you're native Cincinnati, and Randy told us you flunked the LaSalle admissions test. You went to St. X. Congratulations on that. But so, what part of town were you from, and a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, so well, it's funny. My dad actually graduated from LaSalle High School in 1971,
Oh, okay.
along with Steve Shabbat and some other kind of guys that went on to do some big things and whatnot. So yeah, it was a close decision, but one of the reasons, not the reason at all, but one maybe small reason was his head football coach at LaSalle High School was Steve Rasto,
You bet.
who was then the head coach, when I was in high school at St. X. So it's like,
I don't know why we thought that was funny.
played for him. So, yeah. So that was a part of it. And then, I mean, the whole radio thing is kind of an accidental career. I knew when I retired, I wanted to go into, calling games, which I do, and have been doing since really, 2014. But the radio thing, that was a product of, my background in sports, being a local guy, but then also at the time, right when I was done playing in the NFL, I was a Green Township trustee, you might recall.
Yeah.
We were right in the middle of a public housing crisis. And it was like, all of a sudden, Green Township was like nationally, like the place where the whole issue of public housing and how to deal with it and stuff was coming in. So as we were dealing with that, Paul Mason called me, who was the producer, who was Willie's producer, and said, "Hey, Willie wants to have you on at noon right out of the gate to talk about this, the public housing thing." I'm like, oh my God. I grew up listening to LW. I grew up listening to Willie, grew up listening to Mike McConnell and Gary Burbank. And I've, of course, grew up listening to Eddie every morning on my drive to school, listening to Dawn Patrol. So I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. But I was freaking out, right? Because, it's a tough issue. So I remember I went downtown and I'm there with like our township attorney and all these other people are in the room and, kind of, all right, well, here's how you do this and that. So I come on with Willie, and I think he asked me one question about public housing, and the other 20 minutes was about football and the NFL. Anyway, I'd come on with him about 2, 3, 4, or 5 more times. And after one of the, like literally at the end, I'd love to find the clip. At the end of one of the interviews, he said, "You know what? I heard you're looking, you're kind of chasing a career in media. You do a good job and you sound really good. You should come up here one time and maybe we'll find something for you to do." And hung up. And Paul Mason, the producer, called me and said, "Willie wasn't kidding. He thinks you kind of got something here." So anyway, I could go on and on with this, but came up with that and was told you don't want to work here and you shouldn't work here and all that. I hung around long enough, and I got the night show in 2015. Not midnight for about 2.5 years, and then in 2017, joined up with the great Eddie Fingers, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. You got to be flexible when you go on WLW. I learned. I was on with you guys one time. You probably don't remember this, but we were going to talk about some First Amendment issue, but I guess right before I came on, you guys were talking about how rich I was or something. I think Eddie said I slept on a bed of money or something. And the interview kind of went in that direction, and I'm still looking for that bed filled with money. I haven't actually found it yet.
Well, that's the great thing about working with Rock is that we tend to kind of do that every once in a while. It was going to be one thing, and then it ain't that at all.
Yeah, Eddie and I talk all the time, and I think when our show really got cranking is when we became flexible. I think you need to come in with a plan. I'm a guy that just loves and has to have a plan, but then we like to be able to deviate from it and kind of take the show where it's kind of leading or where it wants to go. And you can't be rigid and fight that. You kind of got to have a knack for what do people want to hear? What direction should we go with this? And I just kind of follow Eddie's lead, and we have a lot of fun. I always tell people with our show, if you don't like what we're talking about, check back in about 10 minutes because there's a good chance we'll be talking about something completely.
Check back in 90 seconds is more like it.
Hey guys, this show is about Reds fandom, and Eddie, I'm guessing you grew up in Kettering, a suburb of Dayton, or somewhere close to that, and that's Reds country back in the day. But tell us about your Reds fandom and some of your earliest memories and how it's grown over the years.
Well, just growing up on the Reds, and like I said, I had the two older brothers, and they were both really into sports, and so and you come by. I mean, let's face it. Dayton is Reds country. I mean, everybody there. There's no split allegiance to the Guardians or whatever you want to call Cleveland these days. And so that's what we grew up on Reds baseball. And my earliest memories are, I kind of remember when Frank Robinson played for him, and when I was bat boy for the Little League, the local Little League team when I was 8, because you had to be 9 to play. So I was bat boy, and the big treat at the end of the baseball season was they brought us all to Crosley Field for a Reds doubleheader.
Oh, wow.
And like I said, I was 8 years old, and I still have that vision in my mind of walking into Crosley, and I'd always loved the Reds, and man, I felt like I was in Oz. But
Eddie, did you attend the 1919 World Series by any chance?
I was there. I had money. I was part of the guys that gave money to the tournament. But no, like Veda Pinson, Leo Cardenas, all those guys. I grew on up, and then of course the '70 team with the Orioles and Brooks Robinson single-handedly beating them.
Yeah.
But just all, and I just grew with them. Lee May, Darren Johnson, then Pete came on, and then they picked up Joe Morgan, and Tony Perez was always my guy, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
I mean, the Big Red Machine is, forget about it.
Yeah, 50 years ago. We got to talk about something more current someday.
I know, right? That's where Rocky comes into play.
That's right. So Eddie, I want to ask Rocky the same question, but I want to Eddie. So I'll find out if Rocky's old enough to remember this. But do you remember bat days that they used to have at?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, when I went there when I was a kid, it was a doubleheader against the Astros, and it was bat day. And I had that bat until about 10 years ago, and it finally broke.
And then, Rocky, I don't know if you ever went, because I think you're too young, but they literally gave out bats to 30,000 kids, legitimate wooden bats.
Little league size bats, man.
No, wait, like you mean like a mini bat?
No.
I mean, you could take it and play not-hole baseball with
right.
it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It was Tressler Comet. Tressler Comet was the sponsor of Bat Day. So, yeah. All right. So, Eddie, Crosley Field was long gone, I suspect. You said your dad graduated from high school in 71, so I'm presuming you were born sometime after 71. So, Crosley Field was a distant memory. Tell us about your Reds fandom as a kid.
You mean Rocky?
I said Rocky. I'm Rocky. Yeah, Rocky. I'm sorry if I said it.
Yeah. No. My Reds fandom. My dad grew up with listening to the Big Red Machine, so I would always hear stories about that. And I also grew up listening to the Reds on radio, and listening in on the games and Marty and Joe, and then also, I think my dad loved Pete Rose, and Pete he used to work out of this place on the west side called the Ball Game. And it had like a weightlifting facility, which, you're talking mid 80s, which was kind of not really, you didn't see that much, right? Like lift weights, what hell, this great old Nautilus equipment, but also had lots of batting cages in it. And I remember one of my early memories as a kid is going in there, and this thing in the ball game was right like on like Bridgetown and like Race Road there, right? So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
and I remember going in there and seeing Pete Rose hitting balls in a batting machine, and he would crack one left-handed, and they'd spin back around, crack one right-handed, spin back around, crack one left-handed. He'd move like halfway up in the box, so the pitching machine was seemingly 10 feet from him, and I remember watching this as a kid, so that was cool. But I guess I always tell people I'm 45. I was 10 years old when the Reds won the World Series in 1990. So I'm very fortunate at my age, because I feel like if you're younger than me, especially if you're 3, 4, 5 years younger than me, you don't remember the Reds having a dominant team. I was very fortunate to be 10 at that time, but if you're 5, you probably don't remember it. You know what I mean? So, watching that 1990 team, and, my grandpa, Bob Boiman, and his wife, Dorothy, always loved to watch and listen to the games. He actually passed away in '89, so he didn't get to see the '90 World Series, but watched it. I watched every game. I love that team. I bet you I could still name the starting lineup right now. I remember, Todd Benzinger making the last out there, and Marty on the call. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to remember some of the Reds' heyday here.
Right. And I think that's the problem with the young kids, like Rock just said. They don't remember when the Reds were fantastic, because that was the thing. I came of age in the 70s.
Yep.
I mean, I started freshman year of high school in 71. And so all through the 70s, that's my high school years and my college years, obviously. Well, I always thought that you just always thought that the Reds were going to at least be in the conversation to be world champions. Yeah. Every single year, you took it for granted.
Yeah. I'm a year younger than you, Eddie, and I had the same exact experience. It was funny, though, in 1999, if you remember, that team, was the one that made the run and lost to the Mets in that play-in game.
That one play-in game, yeah.
But I remember there was a game early, or like in the summer, in June or something, and the Reds got down in the first inning like 5-0, and I got mad, and I went out and I started cutting the grass. And a little bit later, my son Joe, who was 12 in 1999, came running out and said, "Dad, the Reds tied it. They tied it." And it hit me that he was 12 in 1999. I was 12 in 1970, and it was just I knew exactly what he was feeling. I knew exactly the emotion and how just. I still have, believe it or not, I have a plastic ruler sitting on my desk at work from the 1970. It's got the 1970 Reds roster, little pictures on it.
Wow.
And it's frightening that they're like 55 years old now. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Hey, Rocky, did you play baseball growing up there on the West Side? Did you play for the West Stars, for example?
No, I did play baseball. From T-ball on up, I played for my first team was the Miter Matadors. I played for Jim Collins Auto Body. Jim Collins, a great guy on the West Side. I know his son real well now. Played for a team called Colwell Banker, and then I played for, you might have heard of a select team called Knuckles. And there's been let's see, like Aaron Cook, and I think what's his name? He's from here. He played for Boston, left-handed hitter. Anyway, I think he played for
Euclid?
Yeah, I think he might have played for him too.
Okay.
And then I played 2 or 3 seasons with Midland. I was a good baseball player. I thought my sophomore year of high school, baseball was going to be my ticket. I started varsity. I hit .405. I made All-City, made All-State. But I was a little too emotional, guys, for baseball. I was too. Baseball is the ultimate game of consistency, right? But I was the opposite. I was either going to go 4 for 5 with 3 RBIs, or I was striking out 3 times and popping up once. Right? There was no like 1 for 4 days for me, right? So football just kind of fit more my mentality. And that was a good decision. But no, I loved baseball. Loved playing baseball. Played with a lot of great players on different teams.
If you played for Midland, I did not know that, Rocky. I mean, just the fact that you made Midland's team tells me, you obviously could play. Because what position did you play?
I was mostly third base, a little left field, but third base and left field. So
Okay.
yeah, pitched a little bit. So yeah, it was fun days. Yeah, I remember, being up at that complex up there, and I never played for the Redskins which is the top team, because I'd left baseball because I'd committed to Notre Dame for football. I didn't play my senior year. So, but yeah, some great times up there.
How about you, Eddie?
Well, unfortunately, the kid had I had commitment issues. And a little thing called.
No way.
Well, see, when I told you I was a bad boy. Well, the next year I was going to play, but all my buddies either aged out or quit. So I was like, well, I don't want to get on a team that, all my friends aren't on anymore. So I did try to play, but once the fast pitch thing came into play, I was all glove, no bat. So I was like, I'm good just playing pickup games out in the street. So
yeah,
I was a pretty good sandlot player. That's as far as it went.
That's funny. So I now have 5 grandkids, and I'm now going to their games, and I'm a much more relaxed grandparent than I was a father. I have evolved. I can sit still and watch the game and not get too worked up. But I have my 9-year-old granddaughter has a soccer coach who's just really good. He really teaches them well, and they all like him. I was curious, Rocky or Eddie, did you have a coach as a kid that really made an impact on you?
No, well, obviously not playing sports, not really, but I'm sure Rock has several guys.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on forever. I mean, obviously, Steve Speck at St. X, really, the thing I got out of him and both Coach Rasto was, the football side, and they teach you the game of football, but it's more, life and how to be a man and how to become a man and how to do the right thing and the expectation level, and teaching you that, that the standard never drops, whether you're having a good day, a bad day, it doesn't matter. The standard that you need to set for yourself needs to remain high. So, them, I mean, my God, I could, pro coaches. I'm trying to think of some youth coaches that I had. A guy named Gene Hutzelman. He was a coach when I was with Midland. He was a great guy, good, taught me a lot of ball. And then my dad too. My dad really, coached me a lot, both in baseball and football. He was a great running back at LaSalle High School. He just didn't get the height that I did. He's 5'8". I turned out to be 6'4". But if you would ask Steve Rasto, okay, as even in 1997, as I'm all state and all city player of the year and going to Notre Dame, he would have told you the toughest Boiman he ever coached was Mike Boiman, not Rocky.
How about pro coaches, Rocky? Any particular one of your pro coaches that you particularly admire?
I had all of them were great. I know people don't want to hear, but Mike Tomlin is a fantastic coach, just in terms of confidence in a plan. I mean, he would walk in the meeting and say, "Boys, here's what we're going to do. Here's why we're going to do it. Are there any questions?" And, nope. So there was never any gosh, are we good? I think we're going to try this. No, we knew that, but ultimately, I mean, Tony Dungy. I spent 2 years with Tony, and his approach. I almost always tell people this. I almost feel not a little bit bad because. People always talk about how great of a man Tony is, and that certainly is the truth. He's a very spiritual guy, very connected, very with God and all that. But he's also a damn good football coach in terms of X's and O's, of knowing the game. But I learned consistency from him as well, especially as a leader. I don't think you can. And I've played for coaches that were the opposite. They're up, they're down, and when we're playing good, boy, we're the best team ever, and when we're not, boy, we're freaking terrible. Tony every day was like this, just shoom. And if we a game where we just totally kicked somebody's ass, he'd bring us in on Wednesday, and he'd show us 5 plays and say, see these plays right here. We do this again, we're going to get beat, right? So don't get too full of yourself. Conversely, we play a game where we lost, tough loss. He'd come in and put 5 plays on the board and say, "Man, look how great these plays are." I mean, we're just, if we can do this little thing and that little thing, so it was a confident kind of the duality of confidence, but not getting too confident, and knowing when we needed to be lifted up and knowing when we needed to maybe, knock ourselves down a little bit. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but Tony was absolutely fantastic.
Rocky, I can't remember. My nephew is Nick Lyle. Do you know Nick?
Absolutely, I know Nick.
You're a little older than Nick, aren't you?
He was a sophomore when I was a senior. Side note, but I'll tell it for this podcast. He started dating my girlfriend when I went away to college.
Oh, she liked redheads. She liked redheads, Rocky. She obviously liked redheads. But he told me a story about Rasso one time and I don't know if you were there or not, but he says so. Rasso, I think when he played was a defensive back, and I think returned some punts, and Nick did some punt returning. And Rasso was getting mad because how these guys were playing. He goes, he's going to show him how to catch a punt, return a punt. So he gets back, and whoever the punter was punts it, and Coach Rasso's like, look at it. He's saying, okay, now here's, and he's telling him, and the ball hits him right in the head.
I imagine that's true. The other one people always tell me is, like 2, 3, 4 years after I left, sometimes something would happen in a game. You're like, yeah, where's Rocky at? Get Rocky. And they're like, Coach, Rocky's at Notre Dame. Like, he ain't. But back to Nick. Nick's fantastic. I still see him a lot. Because I'm still, involved up at X, and I try to show my face whatever I can for the program. And his lovely wife. He just had his second.
Yeah.
No, the Lyles are I really love Nick. He's the best.
Yep.
Hey, Eddie, for our younger audience, why don't we not talk about the Big Red Machine? And why don't you tell us about who you like to go see at the ballpark today among the current Reds, or maybe the Reds in the last 10 years or so?
I always like to see Joey Votto play. I mean, that's a no-brainer. And some of the kids who are playing right now. I mean, especially, how can you not say De La Cruz?
Right.
I mean, it reminds me of when Deion Sanders played here for that short period of time. I mean, he's going to turn a single into a triple.
Yeah.
It's insane to watch him play.
That's right.
Yeah. So we had one of our previous podcast guests was a guy named Chad Dotson, and he wrote a book called The Big 50. He ranked the top 50 moments in Reds history. And I'm just curious if you guys want to take a guess at what he picked as number one.
Crazy. Reds history.
I mean, is it winning the 76 World Series? I mean,
you're close. You're close. You're warm.
The 75 series against the Sox. I mean,
and particularly Game 6. He picked Game 6, which is funny because we talked about it. Like, they lost. It's like, how can that be the greatest moment in Reds history? They lost. But I was wondering, Eddie, how do you feel? What would be your number one if you were I know I'm putting you on the spot, but just from your memory or your Reds moment?
Well, that whole 75 series sticks in my mind, and that Game 6, wasn't it Pete who said that was the greatest baseball game, or he said to I forget somebody and said, we're playing the greatest baseball game ever played. But yeah, I was going to UD then, and I just started. It was my freshman year, fall of freshman year. So I'm still getting my feet wet. And there were 2 guys from Boston in one of my classes. And the jawing that went on was unfreaking believable. And of course, the 90-90 or 90, the wire to wire, that was fantastic. And I have a memory about that was my girlfriend at the time really didn't give 2 hoots about anything to do with sports. And so she was having a party, and it was against the Pirates. and it was like game 4 or whatever, game 3, would they play them 3 out of 5, or was that a full series?
They did.
But whatever, it was the final game to advance. And so I show up at her party, and she doesn't have a TV, nothing. And her roommates, none of them had a TV or anything. And you got a bunch of guys there who want to watch the game. And so I was like, everybody's going to leave this party to get a TV. And I was right, because about a half a dozen guys came, and they were like, "Where's the TV?" They didn't have one. They're like, "Okay, we'll be back." We went to a bar.
Hey, Rocky, you mentioned 1990. Any Reds moments stick out to you after 1990?
Well, Eddie mentioned Joey Votto, and I can't say he was like my favorite player. I always respect him though, because he had the thing that I never had as a baseball player, and frankly, not a lot of people do. Is he had the eye? You know, what I mean, he could lay off a bad pitch.
Absolutely.
I was the worst in the world at laying off a bad pitch. Right? If it was high and outside, buddy, I was swinging at it. So I always respected how his approach to I mean, he approached the game like a brain surgeon, right? Like very technical. And he knew that strike zone. And to me, I'm not a baseball expert, but I mean, that's the key to being a good baseball player, is knowing what's a ball, what's a strike, knowing it in a split second of an eye, knowing a pitch I should lay off versus one I should crank into left field. So I always respected that about Joey Votto. For me, I guess, Randy, was more, players. I loved Eric Davis.
Yeah.
I mean, watching him out there, and he was like, I always just loved like great athletes, and that was a lot of times athleticism and baseball don't necessarily go together, but I mean, he was the ultimate athlete, and how he could run, and how he could jump, and how he could hit, and how he could throw, and same thing with Ellie. So yeah, that's kind of more just some of those players. I always loved Paul O'Neill, and I never understood why they let him go. And everyone's like, well, Paul O'Neill, he's not that great. Well, he's like in the Hall of Fame with the Yankees now.
Correct.
Right.
So I had a buddy of mine who used to always make fun of me. We had these like playing cards we'd play at school, like whatever. And it was a Reds playing card thing. One was Paul O'Neill, and I always just remember he would always hold up Paul O'Neill and go, "Oh, Paul," because he knew because he knew it pissed me off. And I go, "Well, he's hit da 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 da." And he of Paul O'Neill, just more some of those guys I love looking back on.
And
You ever heard a story about John Kruk? He was out to dinner one time, and he was smoking and having a drink, and some lady comes up to him and says, you shouldn't be doing that. You're an athlete. And he looks at her and goes, I'm not an athlete, lady. I'm a ball player.
Ball player. By the way, I think there's something to that. Like, me and Willie went back and forth on this. With all the injuries in baseball, and it's like the game's never been more scientific and structured and researched and analytics and the nutrition and the medical plans. And it seems like guys get hurt more. Like maybe we should go back to smoking cigarettes and drinking beer more, and maybe our bodies won't be quite as highly tuned. And like football is more of a sprint. Like, there's only, 17 games, so you got to be peak performance. Baseball, with as many games as they play, like you don't need to be in peak performance. You just got to be able to get through it. So yeah. I say let's smoke cigarettes and drink beer, guys. How about that?
Go. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. So here's a question for you. I ask both of you this. It's tied up in the bottom of the ninth. 2 outs, man on second. You can pick any player in Reds history to send up to the plate. Who you sending up there, Eddie? I think I know. I think I know this answer, but go ahead.
I already mentioned it. The big dog.
Yep.
Doggy's up there, baby. Tony Perez. No doubt about it in my mind.
There you go. How about you, Rock?
I'm going to go with an obscure one just because I forgot to mention him as a player I loved in some of those like early 90s teams. Hal Morris.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I never was a guy that watched every single Reds game, but I watched a lot, and I was playing baseball. It just seemed like whenever I watched, God, that guy would get a hit, and he'd get a clutch hit. So, and I loved his batting stance. He kind of had the feet moving and the hands.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was clutch, man. I'm going off the grid and going Hal Morris.
I love it.
I
love
love that pick.
That's a great.
How about the flip side of the question? You're in the bottom of the ninth. You're winning. You're on the road. 2 outs. You need a strikeout. Who are you going to bring in from the bullpen?
Well, I mean, that's the easy call is Dibble
I was going to say there's only one answer to the question.
or Randy Myers.
Well, how about Aroldis Chapman?
Yeah.
Aroldis Chapman. I was thinking of him as well. And if you want to go real old school, the Hawk, Clay Carroll.
Clay Carroll.
There you go. That's taking us back. That's taking us back.
Hell yeah.
You're not bringing in Diaz?
Yeah,
If I've got money on the other team, I am.
Oh, come on, man.
Relief pitchers, I think that they will just break your heart. I think they're the ones that just you kind of remember, right? I mean, it just I used to Amir Garrett used to just drive me nuts because I would just feel like you just knew. And this is kind of embarrassing, but he in the off season one year was on Twitter. And he sends this thing out on Twitter. He wants people to give him ideas for his walk-in song, the song they're going to play when he walks in. And I respond, I go, is there a song called Throw Strikes? And he responded back. He was pissed. And my boys just give me so much grief about doing that, like picking a fight with Amir Garrett. They blame me. They blame me for destroying his confidence.
That's great. I love that.
So that's my fault. How about put your broadcaster hats on for a minute? Your favorite Reds broadcaster of all time?
Marty and Joe, of course. I can't say it otherwise.
I got to go with the Cowboy. I love Marty and Joe, and it was. They were unique in their own way. I don't think there's one style that's better than the other. They were unique. It was like it was two guys at a bar having a conversation, all that. I think the Cowboy, just in his baseball knowledge and as a co does broadcast games themselves, it's such a fine line of you don't want to overload people with information, but you also got to let people know here and there, what you're talking about. And I think he balances that perfectly. He's not all technique and this and that and trying to talk over your head and trying to impress you with how much he knows. He does that a little bit here and there. We're like, damn, that was a good point. But then he also has the fun aspect and just the conversational aspect. So I really love the Cowboy. I think he's the best.
Hey Rocky, Tom Brenneman has joined WLW in the morning, and he also does some college football now on CW. I know I tuned into some of his ACC games last year. I was wondering if you ever had a chance to listen or watch Tom Brenneman do any college games recently.
I have not recently, but it's funny. I did run into him at the airport. It was the what airport was it? Charlotte, I think. And I was coming back from a game, and he was coming back from a game. We're on the same flight, and so that was kind of cool. This was probably November or December of last year. So that was neat to run into him. And I feel like I got a good relationship with him. I haven't spent a ton of time with him, but certainly welcome him into the fold here. I think he's doing a really fantastic job in the morning so far. But, I mean, I listened back when he did all his NFL games, and he had everything you need. He had the pipes for it. He had, described the action without talking too much. There's an art to that. You got to lay out. You got to know when to let the images and the action tell the story versus you trying to tell the story. I think he does a perfect job of that.
Yeah, he's great. I've really enjoyed. I always enjoyed watching him on NFL. I think it's such a shame what happened to him, and so I was glad to see him back on ACC football. Eddie, how about the current Reds broadcasters? Rocky mentioned the Cowboy. What's your impression of the current TV or radio guys? I'm sure you can't disparage your WLW brethren,
right?
But
no, I think they do a fine job. I tell you, I think Larkin is kind of growing into it. Sometimes I think he gets a little wonky with it all, but I tell you, I really like Chris Welsh.
Yeah.
I think he does a great job as well. Kind of like Brantley in that, he can get you into the weeds a little bit, but he didn't lead you too far. Obviously, he knows the game, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. Another St. X guy, Rocky and Randy. You like that, right? So,
What can we say, Jack?
So I want to I guess Rocky, but hey, chip in if you feel like it. How do you feel about the fan experience, game experience for fans, Major League Baseball versus NFL? Any thoughts on that?
That's an interesting one. I feel like that's a really interesting one. I think NFL games is sometimes as a downfall can be all about the tailgate beforehand and people getting a little too tuned up, and you don't see it as much in a college game atmosphere as you do for whatever reason. And I think it's a shame because sometimes it can lead to to fights and stuff, which is not. Most of the fans that go to an NFL game are orderly and enjoying the game and doing the right thing. But I think some things pop up with that, so it's a little bit more rowdy. Can be a little bit rougher crowd. Look, when you come to a football game, again, there's less games, so each one means a little bit more. Like you're dialed into, like you're watching the game and living and breathing. So I think the intensity is more. Baseball game. They play a million of them, right? So I think it's more of a casual experience. You go with your buddy, or I'll go with my son, and there may be 5 minutes of time where we don't even look out on the field. We're looking at or talking about something else. I think a football game, your eyes are glued to the action. Baseball is a little bit more casual, and both are fantastic experiences. I think just a little different.
Yeah. Well, Rocky and I talked about this before. It is the tailgating for sure. I mean, let's face it, guys. And Rocky and I talked about this on the air ad nauseum. It's if you were talking to a buddy of yours and it's your random Tuesday and you call him in the morning about something that worked that day and it's like 8:30 in the morning and you go, "Hey, what's going on?" Nothing. Just sitting there having a gin and tonic. You would go, what is wrong with you, bro? But if you're at a tailgate, hell yeah, here's a cocktail. Go for it.
I think the only thing that compares NFL football as a fan experience in baseball are the playoffs. I mean, the playoffs and World Series, you watch absolutely. Those games, and they're pretty close to NFL games. Everybody's in the bigger cities, they're standing and cheering and paying more attention. But hey, Eddie, let's switch topics a little bit. I know you were kind of a weak hitter, strong fielder, playing a little league baseball. But if you were a major leaguer today, what would be your walk-up song?
I was thinking about that, knowing we were going to be talking about this. And the best I could come up with, I think maybe somebody did on the Reds or does use it, For Whom the Bell Tolls. I like to come walking up there with Metallica. And I point to left center field with my bat. The kid touches them all.
For Whom the Bell Tolls. I thought that was a book. Hey, Rocky, how about you?
Walk-up song. I don't know. It has no connection to baseball, but I don't know. Eddie knows I'm a big Pantera fan. I'll go Pantera, Mouth for War. You guys have no idea what that song is, but that's okay.
No clue.
It's got a good, good lick to open it up. So that's
nice. You guys have a platform. Maybe you can help me out here. I have been trying for years to get the Reds, every time a Red hits a home run, to play the opening of Smoke on the Water. I think, we're on the river, the fireworks go off, there's smoke, and how about a guy running around bases? If you guys can push that for me, I would absolutely appreciate it. I think it would be just so awesome.
Well,
Okay.
I'll tell you, Jack, I would love that. And Eddie, grew up on classic rock, and so I got that connection. But back to what we said earlier, if you're 40 or under, you might not even know that song.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, which is a
Well,
shame.
they play that stupid Ohio song at the seventh inning. I mean, like if
Hey,
you're under
Connie,
80, you don't know that song.
Jack, that's Connie Smith. Rocky and Eddie, I want James Brown. I feel good after every Reds victory. Like they play New York in New York.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a Cincinnati connection. I feel good. We could play it about 40, 50 times a year after a Reds win at home.
Love it. That'd be cool.
Fantastic.
All right, guys, your go-to food and beverage when you go to a Reds game.
Rotten beer.
There you go.
Yeah, same thing. I keep it simple. I don't go. Now, when I was younger, I mean, if you got to go to a game and whoever you're with will buy you an ice cream and an upside down mini helmet, buddy, as good as it got. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Okay, both of you, are we going to see a world championship in Eddie's lifetime?
Wow. That's they better win this year. No, in Tito we trust. I say that they are going to go into the World Series in the next 5 to 7 years for sure.
I love that.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing. I agree. You got to have the head man in charge. He's got to be a dynamic person, and I think Tito is. It's also comes down to talent, and they got to get it in. You got to get lucky, right? If you're a small market team, you got to draft a guy that happens to turn out to be unbelievable. But I think it can happen. I think they got the right pieces in place structurally. So I will say yes, it'll happen.
All right. Guys, hey, thank you so much. We've taken up too much of your time. I know you got a show to get ready for today, and it's just been really great talking to you. This has really been fun. Thanks so much.
Well,
hang with us while we let our studio audience show their appreciation.
Thank you all. Thank you. Oh, let go of the X stuff.
Oh, God, come on. One of these.
Yeah. We know what that stands for, Jack.
Answers, baby.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
The whole town's batting about Cincinnati. What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.